Well, we continue with the debate on P98, minimum wage increase, Deputy Sutherland's proposition now amended. Does any other member wish to speak on the main proposition? If no other member wishes to, Conataba Gruville.
Thank you, sir. I totally agree with the other speakers this morning who've highlighted the importance of farming in the island, not just in monetary terms, but also the damage that raising a minimum wage will have on the agricultural industry. It has always stuck in the craw for me not to be able to support a higher minimum wage and even the living wage, but I simply cannot do so until the farming industry is properly supported by the Jersey government. At the farming conference, and I was encouraged, Deputy Morrell, who spoke this morning, and again I was encouraged by what he said, that he was trying to do something for farmers. He put up a graph highlighting the level of support various governments of developed countries give their agricultural industries based on their gross incomes, and only New Zealand and Australia support their farmers less. Obviously, they're the furthest away examples you could find. And actually, Australia is not that far behind the Jersey government. Just to put it into perspective, that graph showed that Jersey supports farmers to around 3% of their gross receipts, but the EU figure is 22%. I simply cannot see how the agricultural industry is going to compete, particularly with higher and higher minimum wages. So I'm afraid I simply can't support this proposition as amended today. Thank you, sir.
Conataba St Mary. Conataba St Mary.
Thank you, sir. We must remember that the figure of £9.22, as suggested by the Social Security Minister, is minimum. This has to be set by government, as there are employers out there who would pay less. And there are some desperate people who would have to take far lower wages. A good employer will pay more in order to give job security to the employee, which will also guarantee that they have content and reliable staff. Of course, wage depends very much on the nature of the job, skilled or unskilled, but in general, employers do pay more in order to retain staff. Hardest hit is always the agricultural industry, who have to bring people into the island to do the job, because locals will not do that work. It could be that locals could be paid more, as they would not cost the employer to bring them in or the need to offer accommodation. They would also pay tax, which would benefit the island. Until that has been addressed, we need to insist on a minimum wage as put forward by the Social Security Minister. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Conataba. Deputy Ash.
Thank you, sir. I wasn't going to speak again. I've done enough speaking over the housing, but I did have to respond to a few points Deputy Ward said, sir. It's always interesting when he speaks. He wanted £15, or he'd like to see £15 minimum wage. So he would be putting on the agricultural industry a third extra 30% rise, maybe a little more, on anybody who was employing people on the current wage, which I would hazard a guess would put many people out of business. But away from that, sir, as I also addressed with the housing, we get a lot of negativity in the press and not enough as to actually what we have done. So if we allow that negativity to go unpassed, as we could have done here, with Deputy Ward apologising on all our behalves, which was very good of him, it would have been very, very wrong, sir. So we need to look that when we put this government on, and I don't even call it this government, sir, because these decisions are taken by the Assembly. When this Assembly was elected in 2018, and we haven't seen roaring inflation or anything like that, when it was elected in 2018, the minimum wage was £7.50. In January 22, it will be £9.22. That's an increase of just under 23%, sir, in less than 3 years. It's above the cost of living and the average wage increases during this time. We also have to remember that during that time, sir, what we would call the lowest level of tax, where you would pay tax, has risen from 14,900 to, at the end of this year, providing it's passed, to 16,550. Keeping in touch with inflation. I agree, it's not above inflation, but it keeps it in touch with inflation. When we look at other jurisdictions where people say, oh, well, they're paid more, their minimum wage is higher. Guernsey's tax threshold and the UK's tax threshold is substantially lower, sir. And for some people, and it's been a criticism of Deputy Southern on this, but it isn't, because I can cast some light, that people say that he's just plucking figures out of the air. Where does this come from? Where does this £10 come from? Well, he hasn't just plucked it out of the air, sir, because the figure comes from the Reform Jersey Manifesto of 2018. So it is a goal of his. It's a laudable that he's followed up his goal. It's laudable that people are trying to keep promises in their manifesto, and I admire him for that. But there is no economic reasons behind that figure other than trying to keep a manifesto pledge, sir. So I just wanted to put out there a few of the facts of this debate. I will, of course, be voting for this amended proposition. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I'll just make a few comments based after the last few speakers. Can I just mention agriculture first? One of the reasons we've never been able to get a minimum wage through is because of the agriculture industry, which claim, perhaps rightly, that they can't afford these higher wages. However, I'm more than happy to support the farming industry and increase the level of subsidies to them, providing we get the evidence. I have asked repeatedly of government ministers and others for data showing the level of support we give the industry, who gets it, how much they've got, what it's for, this, that, and the other. If all that was set out and members could see the economic case the farmers are talking about, then I would wholeheartedly support them if the evidence showed it. So please, let's be open and let's talk about these things. I don't believe that the state should be supporting employers who are paying less than minimum wage or very low wages. And in addressing Deputy Ash's comments, he talks about inflation. Inflation hasn't been that high. I'm sorry, Senator, just look at house price inflation and rental inflation in more recent times. So what I would say, sir, is that yes, we have a problem. We have many problems in this island, housing being one, population being another, and low wages being another. And we need to address these by having proper surveys and data given. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Will you give way to a point of clarification from Deputy Morell?
I shall.
Thank you, sir. I was just wondering if Deputy could clarify whether he has asked me, as Assistant Minister with responsibility for rural affairs, for the figures that he's says he's requested, because I'd be happy to provide them to him.
Okay, so I would say in answer to that, I have not asked him personally, but I've asked the department for them, and I've had written answers, many being inadequate. So I'd be more than happy to sit down with the Assistant Minister, because if we have the facts, we can come up with proper solutions, and I'd support that. Thank you.
Very much indeed. Deputy, would anyone else like to speak on the proposition? No other member would like to speak. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. I hope too, I think like Senator Mezek, that we don't have to be in a constant perpetual Groundhog Day where we seem to debate the minimum wage, amendments to the minimum wage, and then people say, well, actually, we should be working towards a living wage. I want to be in the position where the living wage is the minimum wage, and that we don't have to then say send the employment forum off to try and find out what that should be. We should know what the living wage is, accepting that it might vary and need to increase year on year, and that figure should apply across the board. Similarly, whilst I have sympathy, of course, for farmers, we can't find ourselves in a situation perpetually where we're held back from increases in the minimum wage, let alone aspiring towards a living wage, because there's an industry which has very real issues in terms of competitiveness. And a couple of observations here is that, one, it's unusual in most normal times for businesses to tend to ask for government intervention. They traditionally, we're told from conservative elements in the Assembly, but also from various lobbying we have, that government should keep its hands off and let the invisible hand of the free market resolve all the problems. But of course, what we know when it comes to our farming industry is that the capitalist system is broken, and it's simply the economics of it don't stack up. Now, we do have a particular radical policy, one radical policy which has developed over time when it comes to the farming industry, which would probably be very problematic and maybe almost ideologically unthinkable if it were to be introduced today. And that is in regard to the dairy industry, where we've said you can't import any other milk into Jersey. Pretty draconian, that as a general principle in terms of free marketism, is that no, the only type of milk you can buy and sell in Jersey, apart from, you know, Flora omega-3 enriched milk, is Jersey milk. Now, I wonder what would happen if we did that for other products like potatoes. We said the only potatoes you could buy in Jersey are Jersey Royals. You can't import any other potatoes to be sold here. You can't do that with carrots. You can't do that with fish. All the fish you buy locally has to be locally caught fish. It's a really radical proposal, and I'm not sure that many members would support removing the protectionist stance that we have for milk, because even though it's very bizarre, it seems to work in a strange kind of way, because it means that the dairy farmers get a fair price for the milk that is sold locally. I don't think they necessarily make a fortune on it. It's not necessarily cheap in terms of the fact that you can probably buy alcohol in some cases cheaper than you can buy milk. You can certainly buy a huge bottle of Coca-Cola a lot cheaper than you can buy a litre of Jersey milk. But nobody tends to question that. And the point is that there is a correlation between the product, the labour that's gone into it, and the fact that for it to stack up, you need to have some kind of rules to make sure that the product you're selling reflects the labour, the work that's gone into it, not just the pure raw work, if you like, from the labourer, but also the additional processing and industrial costs that go with it. Now, this is something we don't have with agriculture. And I'm wondering what the economics of it are, because I remember a few weeks ago, and I think Senator Farnham gave, I thought, a good, accurate answer of what the situation is with regard to fisheries, which is that it might make more sense if local people, supermarkets, restaurants bought local fish, but if restaurants can buy fish cheaper from the UK, for example, and import it, and if Jersey fishermen can get a better price by exporting their fish, then that seems to work for everyone. But of course, it doesn't make sense in so many other ways, because we're moving fish around the world. In this example, it's fish, but of course it could be potatoes, it could be asparagus, cauliflower, or whatever, sir. And we're not to take into account the environmental impact that has and the fact that the logistics that go with it, it doesn't seem to make any sense And the bottom line I'm getting to is that we probably need to rethink our economic model when it comes to farming, fisheries, whatever it is, to make sure that we're not putting in those extra air miles, moving products around the world where they can't possibly be as fresh as they would be, as if we were eating our own produce that was grown here. And that might mean, and this applies to other areas, that we might need to be prepared to pay more for our produce. It might mean that we don't have to import so many things into the island with plastic packaging, for example, when we can just get it from a few meters or miles down the road, locally produced. It might mean that we have to pay more for it. It might mean that we, as consumers, expect to pay more money when we go out to a restaurant, and that we don't go to restaurants quite as often. And I've been quite surprised, because Jersey traditionally has always had very generally good restaurants and quite cheap, but it's probably not normal to expect nowadays to have a meal for £10 and to eat out several times a week, when that isn't commonplace in other parts of Europe. And it might mean that when we go out for a meal, we do it half as often, but expect to pay perhaps 1.5 times or 2 times as much money, sir. So those are some considerations there, sir. And I suppose the last point I want to make, and this should be seen as a challenge rather than a criticism to what passes as the left in Jersey, in particular to my trade union comrades, is that one of the things that we need to tackle in the island when it comes to the minimum wage, especially in farming and hospitality sectors, is to make sure that the membership of the unions actually is reflective of the bottom end of society as well. And certainly if I were in a head of leadership role within any of the unions that applied to those sectors, I would make sure that I was out in the field, literally, if necessary, with some union representatives who spoke the relevant languages, Russian, Romanian, whatever it is, in the hotels and restaurants, and I would be unionising those workers, irrespective of whether they're here for 6 months, 9 months, 5 or 10 years, to make sure that those voices are heard and to make sure that that labour is valued, sir. And I know that message will be heard, and I acknowledge the hard work that goes on from all of these sectors, whether it's from the workers at the coalface, so to speak, or the managers and those in the industry who are struggling at the moment, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does another member wish to speak on the proposition? Another member wishes to speak on the proposition? Then I close the debate, call upon Deputy Southern to respond.
Thank you, sir. And I will propose that the 2 paragraphs are adopted en bloc, but I make a few passing comments in the meantime. What we've got here is a very tiny baby step forward in terms of the minimum wage. We don't appear to be getting any nearer a transferring into the living wage as our marker. And the Minister for Social Security has given herself all the wriggle room in the world to come back to us and say, well, I was too busy, so I haven't done it. And that is something that I predict will happen. She's also avoided a deadline that I built into the 3rd paragraph for reporting back on how and when we might do a transition to the living wage, and that's been avoided as well. So there's no deadline in there, which is again an excuse for doing nothing. Now, I just received some criticism the fact that our minimum wage has gone up by faster than the cost of living. But that's because there's a motivation behind it. We are trying to reduce income inequality by lifting those at the bottom, the very bottom, those on the minimum wage, up by greater than the rest of the workforce does, and thus promoting equality. And that's why we see occasional high values on the increase in the minimum wage. The fact is that the Department of Economic Growth has been promising a productivity scheme for the past 3 years and has singularly, spectacularly failed to deliver one, despite assuring us time and time again that one was on the way. Nothing done at all. And so we keep on having this blockage in the farming, by the farming industry, saying we haven't got enough help and you need to support us, otherwise we're going to go to the wall. And that will continue to happen time and time again until we do something about it. And I call on the Minister to get something done. Let's see something concrete from this. Finally, I shall be returning to the issue of the minimum wage in 2022, not least because sometime in 2022, we don't quite know when yet, we're going to see an income distribution survey done for the first time since 2004-05. And so we'll have some hard data about what has happened to all sectors of our economy, but in particular to those at the bottom end, the bottom 2 quintiles, who are our poor. I believe that their fate, they will have been made vastly worse off as a result of COVID and Brexit than they otherwise would be. And the wages at the bottom end are likely to have got significantly worse than anything we've seen so far. And we must do something about that. And I for one, promise that I shall be back with those sort of figures on which we can base some constructive, positive way forward in terms of reducing income inequality and transitioning to the living wage rather than paucity, which is the minimum wage, which is simply not enough to live by on this island. I'll be back. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'd ask the greffier to place a vote into the link. And open the voting and ask members to vote.
Having issues again finding the vote, sir.
And which way will you vote?
Since you twist my arm, sir, and it is twisted severely. Poor.
Poor. Many? Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. I ask the greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted. 35 votes pour, 1 vote contre, no abstentions in the link, and a further 6 votes pour and 2 votes contre in the chat. Contre votes?
Voting contre in the in the chat. Senator Ferguson and the Connetab of St Mary, and then voted conch in the link, the Connetab of Brewville.
Very well. The final item of public business is actions to mitigate the use of palm oil, P99, lodged by the Connetab of St Martin. There's an amendment proposition lodged by the Minister for the Environment. Connetab, are you minded to accept that amendment?
Yes, sir.
Are members content that we take the proposition as amended? Very well. The proposition, I'll ask the greffier to read the proposition as amended.
The states are asked to decide whether they are of opinion, A, that there are global environmental issues caused by palm oil farming practices, and to request the Council of Ministers to take the necessary steps for the Government of Jersey to lead by example and only use and procure products that contain credibly certified sustainable palm oil where practical and appropriate. B, to request the Minister for the Environment to bring forward legislation in a timeframe deemed reasonable by the Minister to the effect that any food item produced in Jersey is labelled with a clear statement of whether the food item contains palm oil or any palm oil derivatives. And C, to request the Minister for the Environment in a timeframe deemed reasonable by the Minister to consult with local businesses and organisations, consumers, schools, charities and community groups to develop an island-wide palm oil campaign that raises public awareness of the issue of its use.
Connetab.
Thank you, sir. This has been a long and emotionally fraught week, and I, for one, am relieved that we have reached the last item on the agenda. I hope that this proposition will be viewed as straightforward and uncontroversial. I will say at the outset that I'm happy to accept the Council of Ministers amendment. It sits well with the proposition, and I'm grateful to the Environment Minister and his officers for meeting with me. What this proposition aims to achieve is to get us, as both an assembly and as an island, to start thinking more about the resources we use and their environmental impact. This proposition looks at our wider impact and asks how we, as an island, can move towards becoming a more sustainable society. As a product that has caused immense damage to the environment it is grown in, palm oil provides an excellent starting point to begin this journey. At the core of this proposition is a question about how we resource our island and take responsibility for the products we buy. If we adopt this proposition, we can begin a journey to become a sustainably resourced island. There is no denying that the rapid expansion of the palm oil industry over the past 30 years has had a catastrophic environmental and social impact across Southeast Asia, South America, and Africa. Consumers all over the world have been absolutely horrified to learn about the destructive practices rife within the industry. And the orangutan has become an emblem for the struggle between industrial expansion and conservation. The tropical areas suitable for palm oil plantations are particularly rich in biodiversity. Oil palm development, therefore, has a significant negative impact on global biodiversity, as it often replaces tropical forests and other species-rich habitats. Globally, palm oil production is affecting at least 193 threatened species, according to the IUCN, that's the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the Red List of Threatened Species. It has been estimated that palm oil expansion could affect 54% of all threatened mammals and 64% of all threatened birds globally. It also reduces the abundance of most native species. For example, it has played a major role in the decline in species, as I've previously mentioned, such as orangutans and tigers. In turn, slash and burn practices linked to palm oil production are often blamed for annual Indonesian forest fires that create thick haze in skies over large parts of the region, including Singapore. This proposition, as amended, calls for certified sustainable palm oil to be used. Clear product labelling should be put in place to enable consumers to make informed choices of what to buy. Product labelling of items that are produced in Jersey and sold in Jersey should be an achievable goal. In practical terms, a change in labelling requirements should be introduced over a specified period of time to give producers reasonable opportunity to update their packaging and labelling, and at a minimal cost. By adopting this proposition, we will also be joining a number of jurisdictions and organisations across the world in working to improve the sustainability of the resources we use. In Singapore, the World Wildlife Fund Support Asia for Sustainable Palm Oil movement has worked to raise awareness of the link between the slash and burn practices used in the production of palm oil and haze pollution, and enlist public support for a switch to sustainable palm oil. In tandem, the People's Movement to Stop Haze movement in Singapore has also been working with local businesses to commit to only using green and ethically produced palm oil as part of a green push to tackle forest fires and air pollution in Southeast Asia. The goal is for the entire city-state of Singapore of around 6 million people to switch to sustainable palm oil by 2023. If they can achieve it, I'm sure we can. The movement was itself inspired by the work of the city of Chester, which has been named a sustainable palm oil city following a campaign led by Chester Zoo to commit businesses and other organisations to change the way they buy palm oil. So far, more than 50 local organisations have made this commitment. Who is to say that we in Jersey can't go further? As you will have read in the report, it is my belief that the action on palm oil could be the first step we take towards a wider goal, the development of a sustainably resourced island, where we develop a more sustainable and environmentally conscious society, one that recognises the value and impact of our everyday purchases. The potential creation of a sustainably resourced island could warrant worldwide recognition and carry a positive and real impact on the island's culture and global standing, inspiring other jurisdictions, including our neighbouring islands, to follow suit. Indeed, we can already see that this island is already moving towards a more sustainable future. Jersey Dairy is the first dairy industry in the world to achieve the global sustainability accreditation known as LEAF, linking environment and farming. We should all be immensely proud of this globally important achievement because it shows just how achievable a sustainable island is and the potential Jersey has to lead the way in sustainability. I've been extremely grateful to have received a number of communications from islanders. The majority, I'm delighted to report, have been very supportive, with only a couple voicing their concern. I'm grateful to members and the public who have voiced their support and acknowledged the debate and conversations we need to have regarding unsustainable palm oil and the adverse environmental impact it has on our planet. Finally, I would especially like to thank my daughter for encouraging me to bring this to the Assembly and for her excellent research that catalysed this proposition. Special thanks to Research and Project Officer Emily Thomas for her help, which has been invaluable. It is my hope that this Assembly supports this proposition and moves us closer to becoming a sustainably resourced island, which would benefit our own environment, the world's environment, and enhance our global reputation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Was the proposition seconded? I open the debate. Deputy Masson.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Constable of St Martin's for bringing this proposition. It is a very thought-provoking one, and she's quite right to bring it, because what it does is it concentrates our minds on supply lines, which is effectively what this debate is about. It's about the end use of a product that we use as consumers and how it originates and the impact that the creation of that product has on the environment and the people from which it originates. And it is absolutely something where all of us are going to have to think more clearly in those ways. And it's very difficult sometimes for a consumer to know exactly what's in a product. Sometimes when you're looking at food substances products, you almost need a chemistry degree to understand exactly what's in it, never mind where those ingredients have originated from. So I understand completely the points about labelling and I would hope that the Constable would wish that to be in what's known as the Plain English campaign, so consumers really do understand where where palm oil is coming from. Of course, the wider concern is in these situations is if you ban one product, all that simply will happen is the producers will just switch to another product, and the actual achievement of what you want, which is better farming practices, which is better impact on the communities where these products come from, gets lost in the process, which is something we all need to be vigilant of. And I think it's a really interesting point to say we're doing this because we want to care about the environmental consequences in other places. And you know, there's a whole debate to be had around lithium and cobalt, which falls into exactly the same arguments as the Constable of St Martin's is presenting us today. But of course, we know that those metals are key requirements in our digital computing equipment nowadays. So it's a really important philosophical and ethical proposition that the Constable of St Martin's has brought forward. And whilst it won't necessarily solve the problem that the Constable is bringing to us, I agree with her that this is certainly a step in the right direction, in the way that we as a community and the business community in particular have to think about the products which they are promoting to islanders. So with that, so I'm able to support this proposition, but I just wanted to bring to members' attention kind of the wider themes that we really do need to be thinking about, not in concern of just palm oil, but of course the whole supply chain for all the products that we use. Thank you, sir.
Thank you much, Deputy. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. And I'd also like to thank Constable of St Martin for bringing this proposition. I think it's much needed, if only to highlight the issue of palm oil and the destruction that its many growers cause to particularly rainforests around the world. Jersey has a particular connection to the issue of palm oil, and that is through Durrell. And obviously many of us have visited Durrell specifically often to see orangutans at Durrell. And at Durrell, they have for many years now had as part of that exhibit education about palm oil. This has been a matter of concern and known concern for many, many years. So I think Jersey is right to take something of a lead in this area. If I could widen it out, I think Constable of St Martin's proposition is excellent, but I think, and probably by her own admission, it's restricted in terms of its scope and its focus on local products in the main. Obviously, most of us buy products from outside the island on a daily basis to feed ourselves and our families. And it is those products where we really need clear labelling on this matter. And as with so many parents in this assembly and in this island, palm oil is an area where I've been educated and led by my daughter, who has banned us from buying products that contain palm oil. That's fantastic, and I wholeheartedly agree with her her diktat within our family. But what I have discovered is how difficult it is wading through all the products that you buy on a regular basis to weed out those which contain palm oil. So many of them do contain palm oil, and I can tell you now, if you don't want to consume palm oil, you're going to have to give up eating biscuits, because almost every single biscuit of known biscuits, so to speak, the famous brands, the famous varieties, contain palm oil. I think in the supermarket where I shop regularly, I think I found 2 biscuits which don't contain palm oil. All of the others do. And so I wish our local supermarkets would help us in highlighting those products with easier labelling, to show us which contain palm oil. I doubt they will, because as I've just pointed out, kind of 90% of the products contain palm oil. It is that bad. So I wholeheartedly support this. I think it's an excellent proposition. I would ask our supermarkets to join us in this and see how they can help us whether it's setting aside areas of their stores for palm oil free or sustainably sourced palm oil products so we can easily go there. I think that would be a great help if labelling is too much for them. But sir, there's no question I will support this proposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. Just getting onto the right screen. Similarly, I'd like to congratulate the Constable of St Martin for bringing this issue. I know it's sometimes difficult when it's quite a specific issue, which some would say is on a relatively narrow point, to decide when and whether to bring it forward and in what manner. But nonetheless, I think it's really important because sometimes we can get swamped by the big things in society and in politics. And I'm not saying this isn't a big thing, because it is certainly a big ecological issue, which we've known about for quite a long time and which has received some, I think, renewed focus in recent months, not least from Sir David Attenborough, from one of the many programmes that he's used to raise these kind of issues. And we're quite fortunate in Jersey in our Parliament to be able to fast track these kind of things, whereas elsewhere I suspect it would be confined to a minor debate without any vote at the end of it. So well done, Constable, for that. I also don't think it's necessarily as complicated as Deputy Massol makes out. I think that this is simply the Constable's identified a problem and a way to try and take steps to resolve that issue. And I've referred to it in previous speeches, in fact, of the frustration of having to go around the supermarket. And this is, of course, only perhaps in relation to buying food products. And we know that palm oil, which isn't sustainably sourced, is found in a whole variety of other products that we might buy unwittingly or without looking at the labels. For example, I can just only talk about what I do as a shopper. I tend to often look at labels for food purchases, but I don't tend to do that for other purchases. For example, if I'm buying washing detergent, etc., or clothes even, you know, I don't tend to, and maybe I should, I hold my hands up here, should be more concerned about the provenance of those products as well as the ingredients or materials used therein. But I do with food because I think I know it's more tangible, and I'm often looking on the back of labels in supermarkets when I do want to treat myself to a packet of biscuits or chocolate. Oh, this one contains palm/shea. I better put that back. And even though I should know the products, you pretty much get to know that McVitie's is a no-no, that Cadbury's is a no-no. It will always contain palm oil. You still pick up that packet every time in hope maybe this particular line of their product won't. Oh no, it does contain palm oil, I'll put it back. And the sheer amount of time you take just looking through the shelves, often in vain. And I guess this is where the devil is in the detail, because paragraph B, if I remember rightly, asks for clear labelling. But of course, you could say that's already got clear labelling. And yeah, it's paragraph B. So you go to the back of the packet, it's clear, but it's just very small. So, you know, who defines what clear labelling is? And what I would want to see is twofold. Obviously, the ultimate goal is I want the shops to stop importing and selling products which contain non-sustainable palm oil. I think that's a position that most of us would want to get to sooner rather than later, in my case. And I would want them to, I would want the products to be labelled very clearly, almost with a warning, you know, like you do for cigarettes, to say a big P, for example, saying this product contains palm oil, i.e. in brackets, don't buy it if you care about the planet, if you care about orangutans, the men of the forest. We do care about them, and we know a lot about them in Jersey because of Durrell, and we're quite lucky because of that. And so I'm concerned, of course, that what we're voting for today is very much dependent on who we have in government next time, and whether they decide what is meant by this is what we all feel it should be, and whether they stick by the spirit of what is being asked for. But I would ask the local suppliers. You know, we hear a lot about corporate social responsibility. The Co-op, for example, who are a cooperative, I suspect only in name now, the cooperative sold out their democratic values in the Channel Islands a long time ago, I fear. But in theory, they're a share. They should be controlled by their shareholders, who are us, the shoppers and the members of that society. And if we say to them, for example, we don't want you to be stocking products with palm oil unless it's proven to be sustainably sourced palm oil, then we won't shop at your shop anymore, and we will take our business elsewhere. It's quite interesting that Iceland have a whole range of their own products that they got rid of palm oil quite a long time ago. Of course, they still sell other products of their non-home brand which might contain palm oil, but at least they've made the change. They've decided to do that. Why haven't Waitrose in Jersey done that? Why haven't the Co-op done that? And next time a store is asking for planning permission to expand their portfolio in the island, so we can literally have one of their supermarkets squeezed into every corner of the island, of course, with a petrol station as well attached to it, even if they don't have proper checkouts in those outlets. It's important that whoever's giving the planning permission, we should be looking at this holistically and saying, well, actually, tell us a bit more about the products that you're selling. Are you selling palm oil? Are you going to carry on selling petrol? I think we need to get to the point where actually, ideally, we should either be saying, we shouldn't need to be saying to private businesses, don't sell these products, label them better. They should be listening and responding to consumer pressure, but it's really difficult for consumers, I think, to do that when they don't have the facts in front of them, and that's why labelling is so important. If you had something staring you in the face which says palm oil in this product, oh, I better not buy it then. In the same way as free trade, you know, I think people try and people want to make the right decisions when they're shopping. And that's often dependent on price, of course, as well. But people want to make the right decision, and labelling is clearly a key area of that. So I'll conclude there, sir, by saying, of course, we can support this today, but we shouldn't presume it's the elixir that it might be. We do need to take personal responsibility as shoppers, but put pressure on those shops as well. And also to pay a tribute to, because I know that they're, including in my constituency or in St. Brelard, certainly, there's an individual who's been campaigning for a long time for palm oil awareness, and I'd like to pay tribute to all of those who have been doing this for a long time in Jersey to get this up the political agenda.
Thank you very much, Deputy Taddy. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Conitard of St Mary.
Thank you, sir. This proposition is unquestionably the right thing to do, providing the alternative does not do as much damage to the wildlife. As the cleared land will need to either be returned to nature or farmed in an alternative way in order for those people who farm this product to survive. Our vote for this will have far-reaching implications, but for global warming issues, this is the right thing to do. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Conitard. Deputy Gila.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I would like to thank the constables for bringing this proposition here today. We are all well aware of the impact that palm oil production has on the natural environment across the world, and we must do what we can, even if our impact is small, to mitigate its unsustainable use. The Environment Department is fully behind her. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Pamplin, are you able to? Yes, you are. Deputy Pamplin.
Yes, thank you, sir. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I will be brief as well. I just wanted to say, and this is not for the first time, what a credit the constable from St Martin has proved to be in this assembly, and it bears repeating. Her speech earlier this week in the assisted dying debate will live long in the memory. On this particular subject, again, like the constable mentioned, and also Deputy Morell, I'm able to speak about this proposition because it's a huge interest to my daughter as well. And I just wanted to raise a couple of points to help those who will be working on this. One is we use an app on our smartphones called Geeky, which is recommended by the WWF, not the wrestlers, obviously, the conservation charity, and it's a simple barcode reader, so you can go into your shops and you can barcode certain items and it will give you the information of what products it's using, and especially around the subject of palm oil. And there is an issue about what is sustainable palm oil. Many conservationists are concerned about the nature of what is sustainable. Some manufacturers don't even go as far to put any labels on, fearing that people will not buy their products. But as Deputy Morell said, it's a lot of products. You're talking all things from ice cream, soap, and as he mentioned, biscuits. And at this time of year, we know how much we like those. But however, we can't call for a boycott, because doing that would shift problems to different parts of the world. But we can take a stand, much like Chester did in 2016, where they became the first sustainable palm oil county in the United Kingdom. We can do that as well in Jersey. So just using things like the app, and if the government could use their influence to do that and help promote that with our various local people, it's another area, and not for the first time this week, we can show that we can lead the way in something. So that's all I wanted to add to the debate. Thank you, sir.
Please, does the member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak on the proposition? I close the debate and call upon the Connétable to respond.
Thank you, sir. And I thank all the speakers for their very positive reaction to this. Firstly, Deputy Macron, this proposition is, we're just looking at food produced locally to be properly labelled, and I'll make sure that that it is, and as he says, plain English. It would be lovely to have all the supply lines that come into Jersey sustainable palm oil, but that's for another time and another debate probably. I think we just have to take this step by step. And Deputy Taudier mentioned what I've written here, that Iceland, the supermarket, have committed that all own brand products only use sustainable palm oil or no palm oil. So I don't see why the other large supermarkets like Aldi, Marks and Spencer, Tesco, Waitrose can't follow along the same lines as Waitrose. I hope that they do. He did go on wider themes, and as I said, I thought the only way of getting this through the Assembly was to not be too ambitious, and I do this in a step-by-step approach. I'd like to thank Deputy Kirsten Morell. I have been in contact with Dr. Leslie Dickey of Durrell Zoo, and I meant to put that in my, it's been a really long week, and I really wish, and I'm glad he mentioned it, because it should have been in my speech, that the zoo doesn't use any palm oil in its in either of its restaurants, and it tries as hard as possible not to use palm oil at all, or palm oil at all, not even sustainable palm oil, in any of its products. And I understand it just uses them in a couple of animal feeds, but they cannot find an alternative. So I think if a large zoo like Durrell can do it, then other businesses over here can do it as well. And I've put with Deputy Morales, I'm hoping if Jersey adopts this, more cities, countries do, we can reach a time when all products which come into the island are cleanly marked. I thank Deputy Taudier, and actually I should have said that a couple of years ago I was speaking to Deputy Taudier in the coffee room, and he and I both mentioned palm oil together. So I thank him for his support because I know that he's been very interested in this. And I'm glad that he mentioned David Attenborough. And I'm unashamedly put on record that David Attenborough is a real hero of mine. I've followed him for years and read his books, and they're brilliant. And I'm also pleased that he mentioned about corporate social responsibility, because I think businesses over here can do a lot to help mitigate the use of palm oil. And and as I said, he mentioned Iceland, who do this, and hopefully Co-op, which I didn't mention, but the other large supermarkets can actually start moving towards having their own sustainable palm oil products. If all these supermarkets did, then a lot of the supply lines that come into the island will actually be sustainable. I'd like to thank Constable of St Mary for his very good short speech, and just to say to him that if you're using sustainable palm oil, and that it's RSPO sustainable palm oil or wildlife palm oil, which is a lot of them are moving towards, then there is no wastage with farming. What we have to do is make sure that the way the farming is carried out is sustainable, and then it helps all the communities over there. I feel that, and to Deputy Guida, Assistant Minister for the Environment, he's been very helpful on with other areas such as the Eckborough hose and everything. He in this occasion, I really do thank him and the Environment Minister and the Environment Department for fully backing this. I'm really appreciative of it. And I just, Deputy Hamplin, thank you very much, and thank him for his kind words. I didn't know anything about the app. I'm not a geek in that area, I will say, but I'm really interested to know about it. And if it's World Wildlife Fund approved, I will be downloading the app after the debate is finished. And if I can't manage it, I'll be asking somebody to help me. And I just feel at the end of this that if Chester, Oxford, etc., can achieve achievable palm oil status, and a country as large as Singapore can do this, then Jersey really can. And I do think it would be a great, it would be fantastic for Jersey to be known, very positive, to be known globally as a sustainably resourced island. And so, yes, I'd just like to thank everybody who's taken part in this debate, and hopefully everybody will vote for it. And I'd like to call for the appel. Thank you, sir.
As called for, I'd ask the referee to place a vote into the link. I open the voting and ask members to vote. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted. 36 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions in the link, and a further 8 votes pour in the chat. Very well, that concludes public business for this meeting, and I invite the chair of PPC to propose the arrangements of public business for future meetings. Deputy Arts.
Thank you, sir. The only changes to the arrangement of public business since the consolidated order paper was published are the lodging of various amendments to the government plan, all of which have been listed for next time. With the deadline for amendments falling next Tuesday, I suspect we'll see a number of further amendments come through by then as well. There's been no decision yet about whether to sit on Monday afternoon for questions for the next sitting, but I think this would be wise. So can I ask members to contact me over the weekend if this poses a problem so that a decision can be made early next week? So with that, sir, I propose the arrangement of public business for future meetings.
Thank you very much, Chair of PPC. Does anyone have any observations to make on the arrangements for future business?
If I may.
Yep. Conataba of St. Juan. I beg your pardon, no. Deputy Young.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to flag up at this stage a situation that I have written to the chairman of PPC about. Is obviously a part of our Brexit, post-Brexit arrangements. We are under some pressure to bring in what's called the OCR regulations, which are really technical rules which we're required to have. I had expected that we would have lodged this during this sitting. In fact, that was imminently likely, but unfortunately it hasn't happened. So I'm under pressure to get these in for next year. Obviously, if I were to do that, would require me to ask the Assembly to shorten the lodging period. At the moment, I can't do it because we haven't got the final draft, but I just want to warn members that that situation may arise. And that's a situation not of my making, sir, but I'm afraid it's part of the Brexit, post-Brexit situation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy Massel.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the comments of the chairman of PPC, but I wonder if I can propose to the Assembly now that we sit on the Monday at 2 o'clock for question time of that week, sir.
You are entitled to make that proposition on the arrangements for future business. Is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on that proposition? Deputy Higgins, you indicated a wish to speak, but that was more generally, wasn't it?
It's on a separate topic, sir. Thank you.
Very well. Deputy Tadier?
Thank you, sir. We're seeing a lot of this, what I would call ad hocery going on, saying, can we meet on Monday instead of Tuesday? Can we have an hour lunch? And I don't criticise any of those suggestions. They're probably pragmatic, but we can't be acting like this as an assembly and giving short notice. People may have made arrangements. I haven't personally, but people do have, and tended to keep Mondays, for example, for constituency work. It's something that I do. It doesn't mean I wouldn't be able to make it. I tend to have constituency work Monday morning, as well as other times, sir. And it's as a result, we're doing this more and more often, basically, because we've decided to move to a 3-week cycle, sir. Whereas before we knew where we were with 2 weeks, 2-week cycles where we could tend to fit everything into a week and still have a breathing space normally on the Monday and Friday. It doesn't serve anybody, including the public, that we have tried to cram things in once every 3 weeks, just so that some members can have an extra week off, sir. And I would like this to seriously be considered by PPC and to stop these short-term requests coming in for moving the order paper around, sir. I don't think it's helpful.
Thank you, Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Yes, it is really just to agree with Deputy Tadier. The move to 3 weekly sittings is the reason we're having these problems. It doesn't work. It has reduced accountability, and I fear that post-elections we'll see even more attacks on our democratic rights in this island, including attempts to reduce scrutiny, attempts to reduce questions in the chamber, things like this. And the ad hocery, what a wonderful term, I think I'm going to have to start using that from now on, is a direct result of this. One way to change it would be to say that all states' assemblies now are Monday to Friday. That may be a way to do it. That would be easier. But as it stands, the 3 weekly sittings do not work. And I'm in favour of sitting on the Monday in question, and I will vote that way. But I really ask PPC to see that, to realise the folly that is the 3 weekly sitting cycle. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to say, there's not really much of a choice, because we're sat here. I mean, the government plan debate is going to be long, and detailed, so starting on the Monday is the logical thing to do. I think I agree with regards to 3-week sit-ins. I don't think they've worked at all. I think we're if we're not careful, we'll get to the end of things and make bad decisions because of it, because of fatigue and people not considering, particularly with the hybrid sittings. It's so difficult because it's not the same. There's 1, 2, 3, 7 or 8 of us here, and it is really difficult. But could I also say that at the moment in my calendar, the deadline for oral questions is the 9th, which has been sent, and I do rely on that calendar, and I thank the GREF for sending me those reminders, because I don't know about other members, but my calendar sort of drives my week completely. So if we are going to move to the Monday and that date is going to be set, can we please have that reminder? And so if it isn't, could I ask you to be flexible in accepting questions, because missing those deadlines, I know we should all be on top of it, but there's an enormous amount going on, particularly with amendments to the government plan, particularly with scrutiny reports that we are trying to produce. Let's not go into that again. And it is quite difficult actually to know in terms of time when these things are changed. I think if we're going to do this, we do need to arrange it today so that we're all aware of where we're going to be in those 3 weeks. Because the other thing is as well, we are all trying to fit things into our calendar of constituency work and scrutiny and meetings with groups and trying to write propositions and amendments and all of those things that we're trying to do. It's a busy time, I'm not complaining about that, but let's get this change done quickly if we possibly can, sir. Thank you.
Indeed. Deputy Higgins.
Yes, so I will come in on this actually. I said it's a separate topic, but it's linked. I also feel the 3-week cycle does not work, and we are having more and more of these almost complete week concessions because we're trying to cram everything in. So I would support a review of the 3-weekly cycle. However, what I wanted to raise, and it's relevant, I'll mention it now, I'm going to ask PPC to look at February, because my understanding is, unless I've misread the calendar, we have no sitting in February because it's half term. And with the amount of work that we have now between now and the election, and we all want to see business finished, we should have a sitting in February. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Deputy. To remind members, this is a discussion as to whether we sit on the Monday afternoon. Deputy of St Mary.
Thank you, sir. And simply to give some balance to this part of the debate, as long as I can recall, sir, the debates on the last session before Christmas, government plan or MTFP, as it was, has frequently required a Monday afternoon devoted to the oral questions beforehand, and I simply make the point, sir, that I do not think this request on this occasion is due to the cycle of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, as to which I give no opinion at the moment. I think it is something we have got used to already, and I wish to put that forward. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to actually thank the Deputy of St Mary for highlighting something that I was going to highlight. This was already happening when we were on a 2-weekly cycle. So I just want to address the 3-weekly cycle. There was a consultation period, sir, and we had a trial on this, and it was a democratic decision that was taken in this assembly, whether there are members that agree with it or not. Okay, at the time, the first time I voted in favour, but then I voted against. Asking for this to be reviewed again would be a waste of time because we've already had the vote. I'm happy to take on board the suggestion that maybe in future we just make Monday as part of that sitting as well, going forward. But sir, this did happen before when we were on the 2-weekly cycles, when we had weeks that consisted of having long debates like the government plan. I just want to address Deputy Higgins' question there about the sitting in February. There is a sitting scheduled in February. It starts on the 8th. So sir, I'm just going, I think I've addressed everything there. Thank you.
Much indeed. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition that the Assembly sits on the Monday afternoon? Deputy Pamplin.
Just to be brief, to stay away from the 3-week cycle argument, this is a good idea to do early because in 3 weeks' time, on the Friday of that week, is when the schools break up from school. For those States members and those of the staff who support us, from scrutiny office to the Greffier staff or children, as much planning in advance to plan for that week, just in case we do extend into the following Monday. That's why I think we should do it as much as we can to support everybody's well-being for 3 weeks' time. So fully supporting of starting Monday afternoon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition that the Assembly meet on Monday afternoon? No other member wishes to speak? Then I close the debate and call upon Deputy Masson to respond.
Thank you, sir, and I thank members for their contributions, in particular the sensible contribution from the Deputy of St Mary's, who reminded the Assembly that this is actually convention and normal practice for these types of debates to sit on the Monday afternoon, and I did it precisely so that members know in 3 weeks' time exactly where they are, instead of waiting, another week for PPC to canvass opinion and come back again. Sir, it's much better that the states know what they're doing now, and members can make the decision whether they want to sit on the Monday or not. It's entirely up to them. And some members don't like the 3 weekly cycle, some do. As the chairman of PPC said, we had a democratic debate, and those who don't like the decision of democracy, that's down to them. Sir, I propose maintain the proposition.
You will ask the Greffier to place a link into the chat for voting. I open the voting and ask members to vote. The vote is a vote pour is a vote to sit on Monday afternoon. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Ask the Greffier to close the voting. Proposition has been adopted. 29 votes pour, 3 votes contra, no abstentions in the link, and a further 7 votes pour in the chat. Therefore, the Assembly will sit on the afternoon of the Monday. Deputy Higgins, did you have a separate matter to raise in the discussion on future business? Deputy Higgins, you noted wish to speak on the discussion for future business.
That's all right, sir. I'm sorry, I had trouble getting back into the system. No, I do not. I've mentioned what I wanted to say, and I've been corrected, so thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Does any other member wish to speak on the arrangements for future business as proposed by the chair of PPC?
Sorry, sir, just my comment in the chat. Is it 2 p.m. for the Monday?
On the Monday, it will be 2:15 p.m. It will be 2:15 in the normal way.
Oh, sorry, the proposer distinctly said 2 p.m. Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, well, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I'm happy to leave that detail to the Gref.
Yes, I think we'll leave the matter to the State's Gref, if you wouldn't mind, because they have to check the calendar for other obligations on that day. Very well. Does any other member wish to speak on the arrangements for future business as proposed by the chair of PPC? Very well. No further debate. I will take this on a standing vote unless someone wishes to have a vote put in the chat. No, in which case I'll take this as adopted by the Assembly on the arrangements proposed by the chair of PPC. That concludes the business of the Assembly, and the States is now adjourned until the 14th, until Monday, the 13th of December.